Ghanatube so we have for model snowy. Masan so atenasibio in some ahodo kobenina nsa ebeka channel way so enti ntempa no so mennom enkwan no enja fonti ye be wakotie in some ahodo bi ekoso Ghanatube na yaba.
Even before you came in, Prof has been disagreeing with a few of the things, but put it into a better perspective so I can get more questions to ask him.
Well, in fact, the Cedi has actually gone through different phases this year, from being the best performing currency according to Bloomberg in the second quarter of the year. Now we are talking about the worst performing, currency, and how did we get here? We decided to track how far the Cedi has come since the beginning of the year, and as you can see, we've come, so far. In terms of where we are, we began the year with $1 trading somewhere around 14 Cedi 70 pesos. And at a point, we saw that massive appreciation in the Cedi. You see this huge drop in terms of how steep it was in May and April, and then also in June. Cedi has actually enjoyed some level of stability, and we've been doing the calculation. In fact, if you take away the depreciation we are seeing so far, until then it had appreciated by more than 40% since the beginning of the year. And now you can see what the Bank of Ghana governor calls blip. And many have said that this can't be a blip because it's been continuing for some time. And many have said that, well, usually you say that external factors are not favorable, and that is why you can't have some pressures on the Cedi. But this time around, almost all the external factors are in our favor. Gold prices are rising, which is good for the Gold Board initiative. You see in the US as well, the Fed is about to cut monetary policy rate. That could ease, the pressure on the dollar. Donald Trump himself has been in some sort of, independent or autonomy fight with the Fed, board, Jerome Powell, which hasn't really been, good for the dollar, looking at its, index on the global market. So many will say that, well, looking at the external side, things look stable, and we know that the fight between Israel and Iran is also down, and Russia and Ukraine, though still elevated, but it's still looking good when you look at it on the external side. Then people are saying that, well, if you have external side being so good, it means that there is something wrong with the economy internally. So what did we do? We decided to check the performance of the Cedi in the last month, in the last 1 month. How has it performed? You can see the stepwise movement, and majority of the story has come from depreciation. And according to Bloomberg, the reason why the Ghana Cedi is currently the worst performing currency is because it depreciated by some 13% in the third quarter of the year. It could be that in the fourth quarter, maybe we might see some sort of respite, and it could actually get back that position of being the best performing currency. But let's try and understand how the Cedi behave in every year. What we've done is to track how the Cedi has behaved in the last 10 years or the last decade. And what we know is that in terms of the first quarter, this is where we have some level of uncertainty, right? So between January and March, the Cedi goes through a lot of uncertainty because we are coming from a new year. People aren't so sure about how the economy or that fiscal year will go. So a lot of uncertainties in the first quarter. Then when you get to the second quarter, when things begin to stabilize, the Cedi gains some sort of stability and sometimes appreciation. That was the point. The second quarter, that was the point that we got that best performing currency tag in 2025. Then in the third quarter is where you have the pressure because people are looking at the festive season. They want to import ahead of time, and I'll show you the import data. This is where pressure comes, and this is the point where we are currently. We are almost getting to the end of the third quarter because we are in the 5th day of September. We should start the fourth quarter in October. So this is where pressure usually mounts on the Cedi, and we have seen that the pressure currently that we are seeing is not coming from the external side. It's more internal. Why? Because there's something that I'll show you very soon. But many have said that, well, do not be afraid, because in the fourth quarter you can see some sort of lifeline, and we are currently doing this analysis between the band that the president gave, that he believes he's spoken to the finance minister, he's also speaking to the Bank of Ghana governor, and they have told him that the Cedi's natural level is between 10 to 12. And so this is what the president told us. He was worried, like many Ghanaians were, when the Cedi was appreciating maybe it was good news, but he really wanted to understand the true level. He asked the people who matter, and they told him that it's between 10 and 12. What have you been seeing so far? In fact, this year, if you look at the strength of the cedi, its best level came in June of 2025. Again, in the second quarter, June of 2025 is when the cedi saw its best level, $1 selling somewhere at 10 cedi 23 pesos. I mean, if you look at it on the Bank of Ghana rate, so the blue is the Bank of Ghana rate, and red is what you see on the commercial, sometimes what people call the black market. So Bank of Ghana, even when the cedi was performing, had its best level, 10 cedis 23 pesos to the dollar. In the black market, you could get it somewhere around 11 cedis 98 pesos. Then we came to the worst level of the cedi this year. It's not this time, but rather it occurred somewhere in February of 2025. Some few days after the president was sworn in, the cedi witnessed its worst level in the year, where it was trading somewhere around 15 cedis 55 pesos according to the BOG's interbank data. And if you go to the black market around that time, it was trading 16 cedis 65 pesos. That is the average that you could get. And so if you compare this to where we are currently, many will say that, well, although you can see some level of depreciation, we are not at the level where the cedi got to its worst level. Currently, what we are learning is that if you go to the Bank of Ghana's interbank rate, is trading around 11 cedis 95 pesos, and black market, you could get on average 13 cedis 85 pesos. So this is where the cedi is currently. But the most important thing, or the conversation that has become so important, is what Bank of Ghana is doing. Many are asking if Bank of Ghana has lost control. And this will explain to you why we are at the level where we are, and why many have said that this is coming from internal. Because currently, import bills are rising. People are importing ahead of the festive season. But there's something that the IMF told us in their last review, the fourth review document that we saw, and that was that Ghana was faced with large forex inflows and rapid accumulation of foreign assets. BOG conducted repeated and ad hoc forex intervention for about $4 billion. And it didn't just come this year. The range that the IMF gave was that it was between October of 2025 and April of this year. And according to them, this was the reason why, one of the reasons, or significant reason why we saw that appreciation in the second quarter of 2025. So the IMF gave that range, that the injections or the pumping of dollars in the system didn't start now, but it started between October 2024 and April of 2025. Remember, I told you that in the last quarter of every year, the cedi gains some level of lifeline because the government comes to the market to provide, forex. But it's also important to put across that if you look at how far we've come, and one thing that is putting a lot of pressure on the cedi is our import bill. We are importing so much, and if you look at the first half import bill, you can see from 2022 to 2025 has gone up significantly, where we've moved from somewhere around 6.5 in 2023, now 8.2 billion just in the first half of the year. And we know that in the second half is when more importation comes, and that is why you're seeing pressure on the cedi. So many have said that if this should continue, you could see Ghana's import bill hovering around $16 billion by the end of the year, which is a big threat to the cedi. But one thing that has tied the hands of the Bank of Ghana is that they have signed a document with the IMF to introduce a new policy that will not allow it to come into the market as frequently as it used to come in the second quarter. So although you may be having inflows from gold board and remittances and cocoa, Bank of Ghana at this moment, because of the IMF policy, may not be able to come into the market to intervene. The governor has already said that it is not a sin to come into the market to provide the dollars because already they are meeting their international reserve requirement. But at the moment, what we are learning is that if you look at the first quarter, the Bank of Ghana had to pump in 1.4 billion to actually keep the cedi stable. But at the moment, they cannot do this as they did in the second quarter because the IMF is concerned about that level of intervention because they believe that you need to allow the natural levels of demand and supply to determine the true value of the cedi. Currently, nobody knows where the cedi will end the year. But what we are learning is that, the city is going through some level of depreciation at the moment. But the governor said that this is just a blip and it will be corrected soon. How soon it will be corrected, MFA, I don't have that answer.
Yeah, how about here in some echo on my for comment. Țahocking me comment section na menjebre enkinkan farmer of fe me kai obi um say aha Ghanatube so open sem ahodo any akese a fa wani twemu channel we so there more reason obetimi enya nsem no and as obetimi attend ya so quickly no is by subscribing and also hitting on the notification bell. Ebusian for modofo snow ni sisi ade makramo.